The northern winter begins with a whisper. Snow drifts across the land like powdered glass, settling over frozen rivers, silent forests, and long-forgotten villages. As the cold deepens, the world grows quiet, as if the land itself is holding its breath. In this silence, a strange tension grows, a reminder that winter is both beautiful and deadly. In this vast wilderness, among the pines and birches and ancient stones, lives a man whose quiet presence would one day echo across history. A small, unassuming farmer, a hunter, a man who preferred the company of nature to the company of soldiers. His name was Simo Häyhä. Few would have predicted that this gentle figure would become one of the most feared men ever to set foot on a battlefield. He stood barely over 5.5 feet tall. He rarely spoke, rarely complained, and rarely missed. His world was simple: work the land, tend the animals, hunt in the forests he had known since boyhood. But beneath this modest surface was a mastery built through years of discipline. His rifle was not a weapon to him. It was an extension of his eyes, his hands, and his breath. Every target he struck was the result of a lifetime spent respecting precision. When war approached, it did not come gently. It came as an avalanche of steel and roar pushing across borders into the snowy heart of Simo's homeland. Soldiers marched through forests that had never seen such numbers before. Engines thundered across frozen lakes. Fires rose from villages that had once stood untouched beneath the northern lights. As men across the land prepared to defend their homes, Simo joined their ranks. Not because he was eager for battle, not because he sought honor or recognition, but because something precious was being threatened: the land, the people, and the quiet way of life he loved. For him, taking up arms was not an act of aggression, it was an act of necessity. The forests that had once been a place of peace now became a battlefield. Snow fell thicker than ever, clinging to branches in heavy blankets. The cold bit deeper than teeth. But Simo moved through this frozen world as naturally as a wolf through the night. He understood its language, its shadows, its dangers. While others struggled to see through swirling snow, he saw patterns. While others shook from the cold, he steadied his hands. While others feared the dark woods, he listened to them, interpreting every rustle, every crack, every shifting gust. The first time Simo took position against the advancing enemy, he chose a hillside covered in deep, fresh snow. He dug carefully, forming a nest that matched the contours of the ground. He packed snow on top of his position so that it would not scatter from muzzle blast. He kept his breath shallow, letting it drift downward rather than upward, so no faint cloud would give him away. Then he waited. Hours passed. The cold deepened. Sunlight refracted off icicles like shards of glass. And then movement. A column of soldiers advanced, unaware that eyes of extraordinary focus had settled on them. Simo's breathing slowed. His heartbeat softened until he could no longer feel it pounding. He aligned the iron sights, never a scope. Scopes glinted in the sun. Scopes attracted bullets. Iron sights were quiet. They were honest. They were deadly. A single shot cracked across the trees, sharp as a breaking branch. One soldier fell. The column stopped. Confusion rippled through it. Then fear. Another shot. Another fall. By the time the surviving soldiers realized a sniper was watching them, the forest had returned to silence. They scanned the snow-white expanse and saw nothing, no hint of where death had come from, only the cold eyes of the forest staring back at them. The message spread quickly. There was someone out there, someone patient, someone who did not miss. The name that would haunt enemy soldiers for generations was spoken for the first time: the White Death. Each day, Simo moved deeper into the trees, and each day more soldiers stumbled back to their commanders, pale, trembling, whispering the same thing: the ghost in white had struck again. Simo hunted with a discipline that bordered on the supernatural. Before sunrise, he was already hidden in a nest of snow. He ate little. He moved even less. The bitter cold stung his cheeks until they burned. Frost gathered on his eyelashes. His fingers stiffened against the trigger guard, but he forced them to obey, warming them only when absolutely necessary. He spent hours lying perfectly still, letting snow accumulate on his back until he became indistinguishable from the landscape. He breathed slowly, as though he was afraid to disturb the wind. Sometimes he would wait an entire day for a single opportunity. When it came, it was never wasted. As word spread, enemy commanders grew desperate. They deployed their own snipers to find and eliminate him, elite hunters trained in stealth, camouflage, and precision. They chased a shadow, a rumor, a whisper. They never found him. Those who came close met the same quiet end: a single shot, delivered with absolute certainty. The forest became a labyrinth of death for enemy patrols. They moved cautiously, nervously scanning tree lines, ravines, and drifts of snow. But Simo never stayed in one place for long. His tracks vanished behind him. His positions shifted daily. He blended into the woods so seamlessly that some soldiers believed he could become invisible at will. The deeper winter became, the more terrifying his legend grew. Soldiers shared stories at night, their voices hushed, eyes wide. Some claimed he could hold still for so long that birds landed on him. Others said he could see in the dark, that he tracked them by sound alone, that he knew exactly where they were before they even sensed danger. In a way, they were right. Simo's instincts were uncanny. A twig snapping in the distance told him more than a binocular scan. The pattern of footprints revealed a patrol's discipline or lack thereof. The way soldiers walked through snow or talked among themselves told him everything he needed to know about their skill, their fear, and their vulnerability. Through his iron sights, he saw not enemies, but shapes, movements, opportunities. He once said that when he aimed, the world around him disappeared. There was only the rifle, the breath, and the target. A triangle of focus. Nothing else.
One by one, his adversaries vanished into the snow. As the months passed, the enemy threw increasing numbers of troops into the forests to find him. They sent teams armed with heavy weapons, hoping bombardments could silence him. Explosions tore through tree trunks and snowdrifts, shaking the earth, but when the smoke cleared, Simo was gone, only to strike again from an entirely new direction. To the soldiers on the ground, it felt like fighting the winter itself. Every time they tried to advance, the cold seemed to grow teeth. And always, somewhere in the distance, the whisper of a rifle. There are stories of soldiers refusing to enter certain areas, places where they were sure the White Death waited. Some claim they felt his presence even when he wasn't there. A chill deeper than the cold air around them, as if the land itself was warning them to turn back. But legends, no matter how frightening, do not grant immunity from danger. One afternoon, while the sun hung low like a cold coin in the sky, Simo found himself in the path of an enemy patrol with automatic weapons. Gunfire erupted, churning the snow into a frenzy. Shrapnel tore through the air. One explosion sent splinters of metal directly into Simo's face, ripping through his jaw. He collapsed. For the first time since the conflict began, the White Death bled. Comrades rushed to him, lifting him carefully, carrying him away from the battlefield. His face was unrecognizable, frozen almost instantly by the biting air. His rifle fell from his hands and disappeared beneath the snow. For a moment the forest fell silent, not from fear, but from shock. The ghost had nearly been destroyed. Surgeons worked desperately. Days blurred into a haze of pain and unconsciousness, and as Simo lay in a warm bed, barely clinging to life, the war he fought so fiercely for finally came to an end. When he awoke, the first thing he asked was simple. How did it end? Did we hold the line? His comrades smiled. His homeland had survived. Simo had given everything he had, his skill, his strength, even parts of his own body, to the land that raised him. The White Death was no longer needed. He returned home not as a warrior seeking applause, but as a farmer returning to the fields. He picked up his old life, tending crops and cattle with the same quiet dedication that had made him legendary. His face bore the scars of battle, but his eyes remained calm, steady, peaceful. He never bragged about his feats. He never sought recognition. When asked how he became so effective, he gave answers so modest they stunned those who heard them. I just practiced, and I did what I was told. In his later years, he roamed the forests again, rifle in hand, not hunting enemies, but wildlife. He smiled easily, spoke little, and lived simply. Children who had grown up hearing stories of the White Death would sometimes visit him, wide-eyed, expecting a giant or a monster. Instead, they found a quiet old man with a gentle smile and the calm of someone who had made peace with the world long ago. Today, his legend stands not because of the number of lives he took, but because of the extraordinary combination of discipline, instinct, and humility that defined him. He fought not for pride, but for home. He killed not with hatred, but with duty. And when the violence ended, he walked back into the quiet woods, as if returning to where he belonged all along. The forests still stand where he once lay hidden. The snow still falls where his breath froze against the cold. And in the imagination of those who hear his story, the silhouette of a man in white still crouches in the distance, silent, patient, watching. The White Death has faded into history, but Simo Häyhä, the man behind the legend, remains one of the purest examples of dedication, resilience, and focus the world has ever known. And in the endless quiet of the northern wilderness, his spirit endures, a reminder that sometimes the greatest warriors are the ones who never sought to be anything more than guardians of the land they loved.